Behind the legend of Hannibal Barca, one of history's greatest military geniuses, lies a story rarely told: the crucial role of intelligence, espionage, and psychological warfare in shaping Carthage's victories against the mighty Roman Republic. This hidden world of spies, secret messages, and strategic deception was the unseen mind that amplified Hannibal's battlefield brilliance, allowing him to outmaneuver and outthink overwhelming Roman forces at every turn. Hannibal's triumphs, from the crossing of the Alps to the devastating victory at Cannae, were not just feats of tactical genius, but were deeply reliant on a sophisticated intelligence network. His spies scouted terrain, intercepted Roman plans, and forged alliances with local tribes, creating an information advantage that made the impossible possible. This intelligent warfare is often overshadowed by stories of clashing armies and colossal battles, yet it was the foundation upon which Hannibal's campaigns thrived. What goes on behind the scenes of historic military triumphs? How does unseen information shape the fate of empires? Long before modern espionage existed, Hannibal orchestrated a clandestine war as vital as the battles he fought in open fields. His agents gathered critical intelligence on Roman strategies, enabling him to anticipate enemy movements and seize the initiative time and again. This invisible war extended beyond mere scouting. It was psychological warfare designed to mislead, intimidate, and destabilize the enemy's confidence. Consider the challenge Hannibal faced. Carthage was militarily outmatched by Rome's vast resources and disciplined legions. To survive, Hannibal had to negate these numerical disadvantages through superior information and cunning. His spies operated across continents, sending coded reports back to him and to Carthage, guiding his decisions with real-time knowledge of both ally and adversary. This network was his hidden weapon, a vital force multiplier that transcended the battlefield. Furthermore, Hannibal's use of intelligence reflects a profound grasp of human nature and wartime psychology. He knew that the fear sown by elephants, the sudden ambushes, and the deceptive tactics played into what his enemies expected, only to surprise them with unpredictability. This nuanced orchestration, rooted in the shadowy world of espionage, demonstrates that victories are won not just by sword and shield, but by the mind's unseen hand. As we unravel the story of Hannibal's SPYMASTER and the intelligence apparatus underpinning his campaigns, we gain insight into how information shapes the tides of war. The grand battles, the sweeping charges, the crushing defeats are the visible echoes of deeper, unseen conflicts fought in whispers and through shadows. In this exploration, we ask, who were these unseen strategists behind Hannibal's greatest victories? How did their secret operations ripple across ancient battlegrounds? And ultimately, what lessons does Hannibal's intelligence legacy teach about the power of knowledge in warfare? By shedding light on the shadow behind Hannibal, this narrative challenges us to reconsider what makes a military genius truly formidable: not merely a master of arms, but a commander with eyes and ears everywhere, turning information into victory. The Second Punic War between Carthage and Rome was one of the great geopolitical struggles of the ancient world, profoundly shaping the fate of the Mediterranean for centuries to come. Emerging from the shadows of the First Punic War, 264–241 BCE, Rome and Carthage, two rising superpowers, locked horns again in a fierce contest for supremacy. While Rome was rapidly expanding its territorial control over Italy and the Western Mediterranean, Carthage held a powerful, wealthy mercantile empire centered in North Africa, dependent on its formidable navy and trade networks. The causes of the Second Punic War were rooted in tension over territorial control, retaliation for earlier losses, and a fierce desire for dominance. Rome's victory in the First Punic War had left Carthage stripped of Sicily and significantly weakened. Yet Carthage, under the leadership of the Barca family and most famously Hannibal, sought to restore its power through expansion in Spain and alliances with local tribes, directly challenging Roman influence. This war contrasted two very different military and political powers. Rome, with its vast population and resource pool, boasted a highly disciplined, seasoned fighting force and complete naval supremacy. Its legions were renowned for their structured formations, relentless training, and sheer manpower. However, Rome's traditional military doctrine was relatively rigid, relying heavily on numerical superiority and conventional tactics. In contrast, Carthage, the underdog in terms of manpower, relied heavily on adaptability, mercenary forces, and a decentralized command structure. Carthaginian forces were a melting pot of Sicilian, Iberian, Numidian, and other troops, requiring a flexible and innovative approach to battlefield command. Hannibal himself was a master of exploiting diverse troops and terrain to strike unexpected blows. A key factor amplifying Carthage's capabilities was its advanced use of intelligence. Unlike Rome's straightforward military might, Carthage's numerical inferiority was offset by an extensive intelligence network. Hannibal's spies and scouts provided real-time information, monitored enemy movements, and sowed misinformation, allowing Carthage to strike with precision rather than relying solely on brute force. The evolving conflict quickly spread beyond Italy to Spain, North Africa, and the islands of the Mediterranean. Rome used its naval dominance to cut off Carthaginian reinforcements, while Hannibal's daring crossing of the Alps into Italy stunned the Roman Republic and shifted the war's momentum. Yet the power imbalance remained pronounced. Rome could raise new legions rapidly, even enlisting slaves and non-citizens, while Carthage struggled to sustain long campaigns far from home. Ultimately, the Second Punic War exemplified a clash between the established, disciplined Roman military machine and the resourceful, tactically innovative Carthaginian forces led by Hannibal. Intelligence, adaptability, and psychological warfare were indispensable tools Carthage used to challenge Rome's overwhelming might. This stark contrast set the stage for some of history's most dramatic and instructive battles, where knowledge and cunning often proved mightier than numbers alone. Understanding this background illuminates not only the stakes and complexity of the conflict, but also why intelligence became Carthage's greatest weapon, transforming Hannibal's campaigns from desperate gambles into legendary exploits. Hannibal Barca's military prowess remains one of history's most studied examples of tactical genius, especially during the critical battles of Trebia, Lake Trasimene, and Cannae in the Second Punic War. His unmatched ability to innovate on the battlefield, skillfully deploy diverse troops, and integrate intelligence and deception set him apart from the rigid Roman commanders he faced. At the Battle of Trebia in 218 BCE, Hannibal showcased his mastery of terrain and psychological warfare. Understanding that the Roman forces under Sempronius were eager for battle, Hannibal lured them into an ambush along the icy banks of the Trebia River. He had his Numidian cavalry secretly cross the river early to attack the Roman rear, while his hidden infantry awaited the Roman advance. By deliberately allowing his front lines to retreat slowly, Hannibal baited the Romans into overextending their ranks, then encircled and slaughtered them. This early clash demonstrated his deft use of intelligence to exploit enemy weaknesses and terrain to his advantage. The Battle of Lake Trasimene later that same year revealed Hannibal's flair for deception and environmental mastery. Positioned with the lake to his right and hills to his left, Hannibal concealed his troops in the morning fog. The overconfident Roman consul Flaminius marched blindly into this trap, only to be caught in a devastating ambush that annihilated much of Rome's army. Here, Hannibal again leveraged weather and surprise alongside superior reconnaissance to dictate the pace of battle. His flexible command structure, relying on mercenaries and allied troops with diverse warfare skills, contrasted starkly with the slower Roman legions that struggled to adapt. But it was at the Battle of Cannae in 216 BCE that Hannibal's tactical brilliance reached its zenith. Facing a numerically superior Roman army, he executed what is often hailed as the greatest tactical masterpiece in military history, the double envelopment. Hannibal arranged his less reliable infantry in a deliberately weak, convex front line that gradually curved into a concave shape as the battle progressed, drawing the Romans inward. His elite African infantry and cavalry were held in reserve on the flanks, ready to encircle the overcommitted Romans. When the Roman legions pushed forward believing victory was within reach, Hannibal's cavalry routed their counterparts and attacked the Roman rear. Simultaneously, his African troops pressed in from both sides, completely enveloping the Romans. The result was a catastrophic defeat for Rome, with tens of thousands of soldiers killed. What made this maneuver so effective was Hannibal's thorough understanding of his enemy's tactics and psychology, acquired through careful intelligence and reconnaissance. He exploited Roman rigidity, their reliance on uniform, frontal assaults, and underestimation of diverse troop types, by adapting his formations dynamically and using deception expertly. His command over a multinational force, including Iberians, Gauls, Numidians, and Africans, allowed him versatile battlefield roles: skirmishers, heavy infantry, light cavalry, and psychological weapons like war elephants. Hannibal's tactics consistently reflected a balance of creative adaptability and precise planning. He understood when to feign retreats, when to strike swiftly, and how to use natural terrain and weather to blindside an opponent. In contrast, Roman commanders often depended on predictable, direct engagements, playing into Hannibal's strengths. Intelligence was deeply woven into these victories. Scouts observed enemy dispositions, local allies supplied vital information, and deception misled Roman commanders into making fatal mistakes. Hannibal's campaigns revealed that warfare was as much a battle of minds and information as of weapons and numbers. In sum, Hannibal's tactical genius was a triumph of innovation over convention, flexibility over rigidity, and knowledge over brute force. His ability to unite diverse forces under coherent strategy, combined with his mastery of intelligence and battlefield deception, remains a timeless lesson in military strategy. Hannibal Barca's extraordinary military successes during the Second Punic War were not merely the result of battlefield tactics, but owed much to a sophisticated intelligence apparatus that permeated every aspect of his campaigns. From the outset, Hannibal understood that knowledge about terrain, enemy dispositions, local alliances, and Roman intentions was the essential force multiplier that allowed him to compensate for Carthage's relative numerical weakness and tactical constraints. Central to Hannibal's intelligence gathering were spies, scouts, and local informants. His network extended from the Carthaginian heartland in Spain through Gaul and into Italy. This extensive apparatus enabled him to gather detailed information about Roman troop movements, supply lines, and even political maneuvers in Rome itself. For instance, Hannibal's spies uncovered Roman plans and learned about troop deployments, which informed his strategy to avoid direct, disadvantageous confrontations and instead engage in battles where he could exploit terrain or enemy overconfidence. One notable intelligence feat was his reconnoitering of the Alpine passes before his legendary crossing. Unknown to most at the time, Hannibal's spies and local alliances provided crucial logistical information about safe routes, hostile tribes, and possible sources of supplies. This intelligence was pivotal for the survival of his multinational army while traversing perilous terrain. Moreover, Hannibal's ability to contact and secure alliances with local tribes, such as the Boii and Insubers, came from his shrewd use of intelligence networks that understood tribal dynamics and loyalties, a vital psychological and strategic advantage against the Romans. Hannibal did not rely solely on hard military intelligence. He was a master of psychological operations and deception. By feeding false reports, using feigned retreats, and carefully choosing when and where to engage, he manipulated Roman commanders into misreading Carthaginian intentions. His intelligence network provided the information necessary to make these calculated moves, creating confusion and fear among Roman ranks. For example, Hannibal deliberately avoided territories controlled by the Roman general Fabius Maximus while burning others, signaling deceptive patterns intended to mislead the enemy about his true objectives. The intelligence operations also extended to counterintelligence measures. Hannibal took great care to secure communication channels and minimize leaks. His clandestine contacts, especially in cities temporarily under Roman control like Tarentum, enabled him to orchestrate surprise captures without direct confrontation. This highlights that intelligence was not simply about gathering information, but included managing the flow and distortion of information to achieve strategic goals. Importantly, intelligence was woven into Hannibal's operational decision-making at every level. It shaped everything from troop deployments and timing of battles to negotiation with allies and management of local populations. In battles such as Cannae, intelligence about Roman formations and commands allowed Hannibal to execute his famous double envelopment with near-perfect precision. Ultimately, intelligence was not just an auxiliary to Hannibal's strategy, but the core enabler of his campaigns. It bridged the gap between Carthage's limited resources and the vast power of Rome, turning inadequate numbers into tactical victories. Without intelligence, his ability to surprise, outmaneuver, and psychologically dominate Roman forces would have been impossible. This raises the crucial question: how vital was intelligence to Hannibal's success beyond tactics? The answer is clear. Intelligence was the unseen foundation upon which his military genius was built. The successes of his campaigns reveal that wars are often won as much by information mastery and psychological insight as by swords and spears. Behind Hannibal Barca's military genius was a network of skilled agents, scouts, advisors, and tribal allies whose shadowy work was vital to Carthage's successes in the Second Punic War. While Hannibal was the charismatic and public face of the campaign, it was this team operating largely out of view that gathered crucial intelligence, negotiated local alliances, and executed covert operations shaping the course of history. At the center of this network were trusted scouts and spies. These individuals penetrated deep into Roman and Allied territories, observing troop movements, supply lines, and political developments. Their reports allowed Hannibal to anticipate Roman maneuvers and prepare strategic countermeasures. Unlike Roman commanders who often relied on predictable, open reconnaissance, Hannibal's spies operated stealthily, gathering clandestine news and maintaining a flow of real-time intelligence. Local tribal allies also played a pivotal role as both informants and auxiliary forces. In Gaul and northern Italy, tribes hostile to Roman expansion, such as the Boii, Insubers, and Ligurians, offered their knowledge of the land, enemy habits, and guerrilla tactics. These alliances, born from shared interests in resisting Rome, expanded Hannibal's intelligence reach beyond conventional means and provided guides who expertly navigated treacherous terrain like the Alps. One of Hannibal's key advisors, Hannibal, known chiefly as a cavalry commander, also participated in intelligence operations by leading fast-moving patrols to scout enemy positions and relay swift battlefield updates to Hannibal. This close coordination between intelligence gathering and military command exemplified the integrated approach Hannibal used to weave information into every decision. Less is known specifically about individual spies due to the secretive nature of their work and the lack of detailed contemporary records. However, ancient sources confirm the existence of dedicated agents who infiltrated Roman circles, intercepted communications, and spread disinformation, contributing to Rome's strategic miscalculations. This network was fluid and decentralized, adapting to the shifting dynamics of war and relying heavily on Hannibal's trust in local knowledge and loyalty. Importantly, this intelligence team worked within a strict hierarchy of secrecy. While Hannibal commanded the army openly, the spymaster and his operatives remained in the shadows, their contributions concealed to protect both their identities and the flow of information. This duality, visible leadership paired with unseen intelligence operations, was crucial. It allowed Hannibal to maintain a charismatic public image while exploiting the hidden advantages gained through espionage. Together, these actors formed a formidable team, transforming isolated pieces of information into actionable intelligence that informed everything from alliance-building strategies to surprise attacks. Their shadowy efforts underscore a fundamental truth of warfare. Victory often hinges not only on who commands the largest army, but on who sees the battlefield most clearly through the fog of war. The Battle of Cannae, fought in 216 BCE, stands as a monumental testament to the power of intelligence fused with battlefield genius. This brutal and decisive clash between Hannibal's Carthaginian army and Rome's legions is remembered not only for its tactical brilliance, but also for the keen intelligence operations and psychological warfare that paved the way for one of history's greatest encirclements. Cannae was far more than a clash of arms. It was a chess match played with spies, scouts, and deception. In the days leading up to the battle, Hannibal's intelligence network had provided him with unparalleled insight into Roman movements, morale, and deployment. His scouts meticulously monitored the march of the Roman consular armies under Lucius Aemilius Paulus and Gaius Terentius Varro, gathering critical details on their exact position, numbers, and formations. The terrain of Cannae itself became a weapon, carefully chosen based on intelligence gathered from local informants and scouting parties. The battle took place on a flat plain near the Aufidus River, with the river and thick woods forming natural barriers that would later play a pivotal role in the encirclement. Hannibal's forces took full advantage of this geography by positioning his troops between the river and the wooded areas, creating a trap hard for the Romans to escape. Timing was critical. Hannibal waited patiently, resisting the urge to strike prematurely despite the Romans' eagerness for battle. His intelligence showed that Varro, known for his rashness, would push the Roman legions into overcommitment, exactly the trap Hannibal needed. When the Romans advanced, confident in their superior numbers, Hannibal executed a masterstroke. He arranged his troops in a convex formation, with the center deliberately weakened to invite the Roman legions forward. Behind this center were the more reliable African infantry on the flanks, while elite cavalry units led by Hannibal were positioned on the wings. As the Romans poured into the center, Hannibal's center gradually gave ground, seeming to waver and retreat, an act of skillful deception fueled by strategic intelligence on Roman tactics and psychology. Simultaneously, the Carthaginian cavalry on the wings launched a decisive attack. Using information on Roman cavalry deployments obtained from spies, they first defeated the Roman horsemen, gaining control of the battlefield's periphery. With the Roman cavalry routed, the Carthaginian horsemen swept around to attack the Roman rear without opposition. As the Roman infantry pushed forward, engulfed in what they perceived as a weakening Carthaginian center, Hannibal's African infantry sprang the trap, pivoting inward to envelop the attacking forces. The natural barriers of the river, to one side and woods on the other, prevented retreat or maneuver, transforming the battlefield into a deadly cage. Throughout the battle, misinformation and psychological tactics complemented this physical envelopment. Roman commanders were deliberately misled by feints and false signals about Carthaginian strength and positions, feeding confusion and panic among their troops. Meanwhile, Hannibal's men used controlled displays of retreat and surprise attacks to disorient the Romans at every turn. The result was annihilation, an estimated 50,000 to 70,000 Roman soldiers killed, one of the largest losses ever suffered by Rome in a single engagement. This victory was not merely a product of Hannibal's tactical layout, but a triumph of unseen intelligence work that dictated when, where, and how to strike. The Battle of Cannae teaches that mastery of information and deception can create tactical opportunities far beyond numerical parity. Hannibal's use of intelligence exemplifies how superior knowledge of the battlefield and enemy intentions allowed a smaller force to surround and destroy a larger one. This battle remains a profound illustration of how wars can be won or lost long before the clash of swords, in the quiet, calculated realm of information. In building the moment of total victory, Hannibal's unseen information warfare became the true architect of success. Every step from scouting Roman plans, choosing terrain, influencing timing, to manipulating troop placement was orchestrated through a deep understanding of intelligence dynamics. His victory at Cannae forever changed military strategy and remains a timeless lesson in the decisive power of information when woven into battlefield tactics. Hannibal Barca's military success against Rome was not founded merely on numbers or brute force. It was deeply rooted in his ingenious use of psychological warfare and deception on the battlefield. His ability to manipulate the perceptions, fears, and expectations of his Roman opponents gave him a decisive edge, often turning battles before a single sword was drawn. One of Hannibal's hallmark psychological tactics was the feigned retreat. This clever maneuver exploited Roman overconfidence and their penchant for direct, aggressive engagement. By deliberately pretending to withdraw in disorder, Hannibal lured Roman forces into overextending themselves in pursuit. The Romans, perceiving a weakness or disarray, eagerly advanced, only to be trapped and encircled by well-prepared Carthaginian forces lying in wait. This technique was famously employed at the Battle of Cannae, where it set the stage for his devastating double envelopment. Hannibal's war elephants were another integral component of his psychological arsenal. These imposing beasts, towering over infantry and cavalry, struck terror into Roman hearts long before battle commenced. The sight of charging elephants, accompanied by their deafening trumpeting and thunderous footsteps, sowed confusion and panic in enemy ranks. Even when their physical impact was limited, elephants served as powerful symbols of Carthaginian might and unpredictability. Their psychological effect was so profound that Roman commanders had to adapt tactics explicitly to neutralize or avoid these beasts as the war progressed. Deception extended beyond battlefield maneuvers to strategic misdirection and misinformation. Hannibal deliberately seeded false intelligence and employed feints to mislead Roman commanders about his intentions and troop strengths. Such tactics kept the Romans guessing, undermined their trust in their own scouts, and eroded morale. For example, Hannibal's strategic delay and selective engagement with Roman forces during the campaign in Italy created an aura of invincibility and unpredictability. Romans, shifting decisions, prompted by unclear intelligence, often played directly into Hannibal's hands. This use of psychological warfare contrasted sharply with Roman military culture, which prized discipline, order, and straightforward confrontation. Roman commanders often underestimated Hannibal's cunning and the intangible forces he wielded: fear, confusion, misdirection. The phrase "Hannibal is at the gates" itself became a symbol of pervasive dread that gripped Roman society. Hannibal's ability to exploit this fear repeatedly caused Roman troops and commanders to falter under pressure, contributing to catastrophic defeats. At the same time, Hannibal also cultivated morale among his own troops by sharing in their hardships and demonstrating inspiring leadership. This dual approach, demoralizing the enemy while uplifting his own forces, strengthened Carthaginian resolve and discipline throughout arduous campaigns. In sum, Hannibal's psychological and deception tactics were indispensable to his operational success. By manipulating enemy perceptions, sowing misinformation, and projecting an almost mythic aura of invincibility through elephants and feigned retreats, Hannibal gained battlefield advantage far beyond what his numerical strength would suggest. His strategic use of mind games and deception remains a timeless lesson in the art of war, demonstrating that conquering hearts and minds is as critical as conquering territory. While Hannibal Barca's intelligence efforts were critical to his extraordinary military successes, his espionage network was not without significant challenges and failures. Operating deep within enemy territories, Hannibal faced a complex and hostile environment rife with unreliable agents, Roman counterintelligence efforts, and daunting logistical obstacles. These difficulties added tension to his campaigns, reminding us that even the greatest commanders confront setbacks in the shadowy world of espionage. One of the most persistent problems was the unreliability of agents and informants. Hannibal relied heavily on local tribal allies and mercenary networks to send intelligence, but these relationships were often fragile and fraught with divided loyalties. Tribal factions could switch sides or withhold critical information, depending on shifting political winds or bribes from the Romans. This meant Hannibal constantly had to verify intelligence and sometimes act on incomplete or outdated reports, increasing the risk of misjudgments. Roman counterintelligence posed a formidable threat to Hannibal's spy network. The Romans, aware of their adversaries' dependence on espionage, actively sought to infiltrate Carthaginian operations and disrupt their flow of information. They employed their own agents to feed false information, intercept messages, and sow distrust among Hannibal's allies. This cat-and-mouse game created a constant battle of wits, with Hannibal's operatives sometimes falling victim to Roman subterfuge. For example, misinformation campaigns occasionally led Hannibal to wrongfully anticipate Roman moves, forcing him to adapt quickly on the battlefield. Logistical difficulties also hindered reliable communication and coordination. Hannibal's forces were often spread across vast and hostile terrains, from the Alps and Gaul to the plains of Italy, making the swift transmission of data profoundly challenging. Harsh weather, hostile local populations, and dangerous negotiations slowed or severed lines of communication, occasionally delaying critical orders and troop deployments. The need to protect agents from Roman detection further complicated logistics, restricting Hannibal's ability to maintain a fully transparent intelligence system. There were notable moments when intelligence failures nearly cost Hannibal dearly. At times, over-reliance on certain informants or flawed interpretations of intelligence led to missed opportunities or tactical errors. Additionally, Roman adaptability meant that Hannibal could not maintain long-term surprise indefinitely. His enemies learned from their setbacks, eventually neutralizing many of his deceptive ploys. These espionage challenges added a layer of realism and tension to Hannibal's campaign narrative. They show that his victories, while remarkable, were never guaranteed and were hard-fought in both open battle and the unseen war of information. Hannibal's resilience in overcoming these obstacles, constantly refining his intelligence operations despite setbacks, demonstrates the dynamic nature of wartime espionage and its risks. In sum, Hannibal's intelligence network faced the perils inherent in shadow warfare: untrustworthy allies, hostile counterespionage, and logistical hurdles. These difficulties remind us that intelligence is a double-edged sword, powerful but fragile, capable of shaping fate yet vulnerable to failure. Understanding these challenges deepens our appreciation for Hannibal's strategic brilliance and the intricate, high-stakes world behind Carthage's greatest victories. Hannibal Barca's innovative use of intelligence and espionage during the Second Punic War left a profound and lasting legacy on military strategy and the role of information warfare. His campaigns demonstrated that,